Lai Mohammed slams Atiku, asks him to stop blaming Buhari for the Boko Haram crisis. Ebonyi government directs security agencies to kill any miscreant found with a gun or dangerous weapon. Constitution amendment suffers a setback. Lawal Mila blames some state assemblies for stolen process. And also coming up on Politics HQ. President Cyril Ramaphosa survives impeachment vote over farm scandal. Amnesty International accuses Morocco and Spain of migrant debt cover-up. I am Gbenga Aborowa, standing in for Sulaiman Alede. Today on Politics Headquarters, we would have Kunle Lawal, Executive Director, Electoral College Nigeria, and also Oluwadare Kolawole, Deputy Director, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project. Sarah, stay with us, Politics HQ. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Politics HQ. Suspected hoodlums on Monday unleashed a spate of violent attacks on the Independent National Electoral Commission building in Owerri, in most states. Similarly, the Commission's offices in Ebonyi, Osun, and Ogun states within the past few weeks have also been attacked, sparking fears that some people were plotting to derail the conduct of the 2023 elections. Reacting to the development, Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma declared that the development proved that the insecurity in the state was politically contrived. The governor, who accused unnamed politicians of heightening insecurity in the state, said he was happy that the security agents were able to overpower the criminals. According to the governor, some politicians in the state wish to win elections without going through the electioneering process. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but authorities have in recent past blamed an outlawed separatist group, the Indigenous People of Biafra, or IPOB, for increased restiveness in the southeast. IPOB has denied involvement. Between 2019 and now, there have been over 53 attacks, and the attacks are becoming more daring. Now, joining us to discuss this on PHQ today, we have the Executive Director, Electoral College Nigeria, Kunle Lawal. A warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us in Politics.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Now, some really shocking statistics there. Between 2019 and now, there's been over 53 attacks on the Independent National Electoral Commission facilities across the country. And these attacks are becoming more daring. What would you attribute to these attacks, and what might be the modus operandi behind it?
Well, looking at Nigeria right now, Nigeria hasn't been stable as a country. The height of insecurity has been above the normal levels. And if you want to ensure or cause or wreak havoc, one of the first choices you're going to make is attack the electioneering process, because if you attack that, then you destroy the credibility of any government in power. This is not to say that politicians do not always look for, means to try to unsettle the electorate, to ensure most people do not come out or feel unsafe, so that they, of course, could mess with the system. But I think that we need to start looking inwards as a country. We need to secure this particular parastatals properly, and then most of all, the electorate needs to understand that to be Nigerian, we must participate in these elections.
Now, a lot of these attacks have been, the geographical location has been the southeastern part of Nigeria. Is there any particular reason why these attacks are happening there? And what has been the government's response to these attacks?
I think the government has tried to respond. They've responded more passively, because it's just been talk. The locations and this particular INEC offices have not been fully equipped to withstand such parameters. We already understand that we have a problem with security in Nigeria, and that we are actually pushed with the police, and the military too is pushed with issues in the northeast. we haven't really done much. And I feel that most people trying to unstable this thing think that this is a way forward. For the current actions in the southeast, I think this is because there's been a lot of work. I think it's been predominantly in southern Nigeria, this attack on INEC offices, because it's been the southwest and the southeast, but the southeast taking the bulk of everything. Well, it shows the state of security in the southeast. It shows the disparity in the political nature or the heterogeneous political nature of the southeast, how people want to, of course, we have the separatists who are on one side, we have multiple split party personalities, because in the southeast, you'll be talking of, even the incumbent is not as strong, the considered number 2 opposition is not as strong.
True.
You would have APGA totally playing in the game. So I think it's a whole mix of a lot of things.
And they believe that attacking INEC officers is the best way to go about, getting their points across. Now, this is not, the attack that happened on Monday was not a one-off. It's been happening we've seen the frequency of these attacks. In all, 53 attacks have happened. Do you think the Nigerian security operatives or INEC itself should have been more proactive? Because I do recall that during election nearing period, when they're conducting elections, they do keep some of the sensitive materials in a fortified building like the Central Bank of Nigeria offices in the States, because they know it has a lot of security operatives and is well fortified and will prevent attacks like this. Do you think INEC should have been more proactive in at least moving some of these offices away from making them more clandestine?
There's always been a mistake with our planning of security for elections, and it's always during the election time, that is when INEC offices are fully guarded. Their provision for security is higher. Their funding for security is also higher. Now, within this phase preceding an election and then post an election, INEC offices are virtually as open as my house or your house. And that hence the issues why we're seeing what we're seeing presently.
Yeah, because they have to interact and liaise with the public.
But the truth is, understanding the insecurity status in Nigeria, I think a year before elections, INEC offices should be fully secured, and that should be budgeted under that should be made by the National Assembly. That particular budget should be made.
I absolutely agree with you. Now, no group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but authorities in the recent past blamed the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, for its activities. IPOB has in turn denied involvement. The Imo State Police Command today, in an interview on another television station, did expressly say IPOB was responsible for these attacks on INEC facilities. What do you make of this? Do you think a thorough investigation has been done, or it was just under pressure to, name a culprit?
I think that most of the time, the comments we make about elections, when we place pressure on security agencies, their shortcoming on intelligence make them say a lot of things. IPOB has clearly come out, and this is not that I support IPOB, but IPOB has come out to say fully that it wasn't part of this. So I think a lot of intelligence should be done. The pressure on security agencies should make them work harder and get to the bottom of this, instead of just, speculating what exactly should be done. This has always been our tradition with matters of national security. We always speculate on things that we think are right. I wouldn't be surprised if this might even be done by, I'm not saying this is being done. I don't want to be quoted wrongly, but I wouldn't be surprised that this thing is even closer home than we think it is.
Now, Chieftain of Ohaneze Ndigbo, the Pan-Igbo social-cultural group, Ezefe, did say that, these attacks on INEC facilities in the southeast is done by politicians that want to stifle southeastern votes in the upcoming elections. What do you read to that?
Well, he must have some information for him to make that particular statement. I don't have that information, but I would say clearly, like I said earlier, if you want to undermine any government, the easiest way to do it is undermine its credibility in electioneering. Once you've done that, you have an argument that that government does not represent the people of Nigeria, or does not represent, or the votes there do not represent the will of the people. of that, and that is a basis to go to court and probably, truncate the entire election process.
Now, what might be the motivation? Because I don't think it's more than one party that is doing all of this. And is this issue so much beyond us that the security operatives can't give us definite answers and put an end to it? Because it's a very serious matter. It has consequences of derailing the entire elections and its credibility, like you rightly said. So what can government do to be more proactive and bring this attacks to an end? Or are they just soft targets that nothing can be done about it?
I liked what you said. What is the motivation? I think the motivation is because they can. That's the first motivation. Because if we've secured it enough, you've not heard anyone going to attack the central bank as much as we have people that are looking for money in Nigeria. Nobody has gone to attack a central bank because they're well secured. So because they can, because we've allowed them. So next, what should the government do? While we're talking, I already mentioned that 1 year before elections, budgets should be provided to secure INEC offices. It shouldn't be something done preceding 2 weeks before an election and 2 weeks after an election. That doesn't make sense.
Whose responsibility is it? The state government or the federal government?
No, actually, the power lies in the National Assembly, whose funding INEC directly is under.
But the governors are the chief security officers of their own states.
As we've seen, governors naturally cannot, we don't want to open that can, but governors naturally cannot do anything except chase political opponents. That's when they're in charge of security.
I mean, the commissioners of police actually take orders from the IG.
No, I said, and I want this to be clear, governors can when it's political opponents, but when it's terrorists or a problem, governors don't have security power.
Interesting take there. Now, let's talk about INEC's response. INEC says, and I quote, it will be relying on technology to electronically transmit results, and assured Nigerians that the attacks on facilities will not affect the 2023 general elections. Are you very confident in INEC's use of technology to withstand all this barrage of attacks? We've seen they're like, they don't want to hit the polity, relax. It's fine, we have the technology, results we transmitted, everything is fine. Is there a cause for alarm, or do you go with INEC's take?
I think the people attacking these offices are very well clear that they won't be able to attack these offices preceding an election. So I think the target is to ensure that PVCs do not get to the right people, because at this time what INEC actually is doing is getting PVCs to the adequate people, to people that of course have registered. And if you're doing that, and it means your target clearly is to circumvent the number of people that participate in an election. Because the present BVAS ensures that from polling unit, electronic transmission is done to INEC servers immediately. So it means there is no more collation rigging, no more collation center rigging. And I'm sure everybody has calculated, okay, since that's going to happen, why don't we cause the problem? And I wouldn't be surprised if probably more than one political party is in this, because they will now be like, okay, so it means our main guys are the only ones that will participate in the election, so let's unstable it for the average guy, knowing that when the average guy can't vote, you can't go against the system. And for me, I would say criminally smart and a problem for the Nigerian polity.
Now, the Nigerian polity, do they show enough presence to discourage hoodlums and people that might want to, truncate the exercise and all of that? Because it seems when their actions without consequences, that's what enables all this sort of behavior. They keep poking and testing, and then it grows into a monster you can't deal with.
I think the problem in Nigeria is that the government and Nigerians generally, we are more reactionary than we are protecting ourselves before it happens. We don't anticipate. We actually react. So we wait for something to happen, then we start, which is why it always goes into a hydra-headed monster. If we anticipated it and prepared for it way before time, we might have been able to solve it. Another problem with the electorate is that I don't think Nigerians love the country enough, because if they did, this will be no problem, and Nigerians will still come out en masse to vote in 2023.
Now, Kunle, your organization and you've been in the forefront of election advocacy for quite some time now. next year will be the 24th year, if I'm not mistaken, of our uninterrupted democratic experience. As we inch towards the 2023 elections, would you say you're satisfied or happy in the quality of conversation we're having on the things that the next president of Nigeria needs to do, the debates, the interrogation, the discussions we're having in the media and all of that? I see you have a very cheeky, bright smile there. Can you translate it?
There are two ways
please?
to answer this.
Yes.
And if I'm to answer honestly, I'll say the quality of debates I've seen have been very poor. And I'll tell you why. So you have lofty questions and, everybody asking, what are you going to do with education, and people talking about GDPs and how they're going to push it forward and, all these lofty ideas. What nobody has even asked, which is what I've always wanted to hear, is what you're going to do with a quarter budget or an empty budget of 2023 when you assume office for the first 6 months. And I've not seen anybody ask that question, and presidential candidates have been moving around. So what do I think of democracy? I think the Electoral College has put its time into political literacy. In the last 3 years, we've been able to train over 10,000. I don't think that's enough. I still think Nigerians are, 92% of Nigerians are politically illiterate. I still feel that... I need to comment there. Why do you say that? They have rallies, and I see thousands of people attend these rallies. They're very excited. Everybody says they have their PVC. So what do you mean they're politically illiterate? Participatory and political literacy are two different things. I'll give you an example.
Thank you.
I'll give you an example. How many people in Nigeria know how much FAC allocation comes to what particular local government? And I'll give you an example. You're sitting down in Etiosa. If I ask you the FAC allocation to Etiosa, I'm sure you wouldn't be able to answer that. But I'll help you answer.
My business colleague will be able to. 503
million per month. And, we don't still know that. And Etiosa is considered one of the most politically literate or the most literate local government in Nigeria, yet they have a 7% participation in local government elections. That does not pan out. So back to what I'm saying. Yeah, rallies, of course, everybody wants. Who doesn't want a towel, a T-shirt? But that's not politics. That is just the rabble-rousing of the circus of politics.
True.
We've not also been able to differentiate governance. So looking at the whole thing, I think Nigerians, we're interested in the circus of politics, but we've not learnt the ropes yet.
We still have a lot of work to do. And organization like yours and civil society would help the media in getting the right message out there and, of course, educating and enlightening Nigerians. Now, Kunle, quite a number of observers have, commended the conduct of Nigerian security operatives, the Nigerian police, in the off-cycle elections. Anambra, for example, Ekiti and Osun State, they did commend the way people went about things, because there were minimal reports of violence and, ballot snatching and all of that. But we understand that these are off-cycle elections, so you could deploy a huge contingent of security operatives there. Do you think the Nigerian police and its security operatives have the capacity to secure the country, knowing our shortfalls with, insecurity in the recent past in 2023? Okay, so
if we hadn't been participatory in election security, which involved the Nigerian police and involved, other security agencies participating in elections, I probably would have had a very poor answer for that and said, no, they're not ready. But when you interface with the police and you interface with other people participating in the system, you realize that sometimes the orders to do something or stand down on a particular matter comes from people who are serving within governance. And it begs the question, do we actually want a credible election? But the president has put his foot down and clearly said he wants a clear election. Now, we are believing that the president would keep his word, so we're also believing everybody will stand down. I love what you said about off-cycle elections. We cannot use it to judge. I would say 2019 election probably had less violence than any other election in Nigeria, which means we're growing. It might be slow, but we're growing.
The needle is moving
it's moving
forward.
Yes.
Now, back to this matter of attacks on INEC facilities. What would be some of the consequences on the 2023 elections if these attacks don't stop? Because every other week it's in the news and they're becoming more daring.
The first one will be voter apathy in the southeast and southwest.
Yeah, of course, you wouldn't
That will
want to
be
go out in
that. Yes, that will be the first thing. And it's not only going out. I'm even feeling people will leave the country and say the country might not be safe. We saw this happen in 2015. Remember that the most touchy elections in Nigeria are when an incumbent has to leave office. Last time we saw this was with Obasanjo in 2007. And if you remember that election, it was quite a little shaky for Nigeria. Now we're back to the same thing, passing from an incumbent who spent two terms to someone new. And now it doesn't necessarily mean the person will come from his party. That uncertainty pushes the needle. And I think that's why insecurity,
of the race.
Yes, it pushes the needle a little bit, because any party could have this. Anything can happen. It's so diverse in Nigeria that you can't predict the exact outcome of the elections. And I think that's what causes people to push on the level of insecurity. But I think also that a lot is being done within the system. I'm very clear about, because we're part of quite a lot of meets and a lot of training that's being done for the police within INEC and a lot of other things to push towards actually ensure a very credible and free elections in 2023.
Kunle, INEC has complained about vote buying. If you look at the last elections to now, sadly, it looks like more Nigerians are poorer. The numbers tell the story. If you look at old indices of human capital development and the level of poverty has increased. So some politicians have weaponized poverty and have decided to use money to, induce voters and buy votes. And INEC is worried that, why do we even contest elections in the first place? It might just be an open bid. So is there any way we can safeguard the citizens from vote buying, from this menace of vote buying? And what can INEC do? And what's your message to Nigerians?
Okay, so you've thrown quite a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to balance this as easy as possible. We're putting the cart before the horse when we discuss vote buying. Nigeria already, within the Electoral Act, has a stipulated amount for funds that you can spend while running for office. Till we put that in effect, vote buying will continue to exist because those campaign limits are not being adhered to. So 5 billion for president, 1 billion, I think, for governor, 100 million for senator, 50 million for House of Rep, 25 million for local government and state House of Assembly. And those are the limits. And if we are able to curb those limits, and you still hear people saying someone gave 100 cars. If you quantify 100 cars, the person has already exceeded his campaign. Yeah, and nobody is doing that. If people are penalized and removed from this, and I think the National Assembly pulled a fast one on Nigerians, because where this is in the Electoral Act, it states that there are these limits. But now it does something funny. It does not state who is to prosecute, whether it's INEC, police, EFCC, it leaves it wide.
So it's just a waiting game.
If you take someone to court, the person will say you don't have the jurisdiction because nobody actually has the jurisdiction. I feel till we get that right, we never would be able to stop vote buying because we have to limit the amount of cash being used in this thing. But also, I'd like to call in the media.
And of course, then the poverty. You can't go to Norway and say you want to vote buy, or a country like Singapore, because of the per capita income. People are more well-to-do in that country. So poverty does play a part.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I'll give you a simple example. If you're to buy people in Etiosa, and it happens, if you're to buy people in Etiosa, you buy them way before the elections. I've been in politics, so I know what actually goes on. You buy them before the elections, and trust me, it's not cheap. So what you do is you buy them at the top and then get those ones to react. Now, let's say we have a billionaire here, and I have him on my payroll as a politician. What I do is I ensure juicy contracts come to him. He supports then he buys small bags of rice. So the truth is that who is being bought is the middle class and the elite. And then it trickles down to the ground. So till you stop that, if you stop that amount of money going out of the system, which still brings you back to the campaign costs, if we're able to pull that in full effect, I can assure you that every presidential candidate, whether donated or not donated, has exceeded campaign fundings less than 2 months after winning the primaries.
So we're going into 2023 elections, and we're not experimenting, we're deploying. It's been used in the off-cycle elections to test but we've not tested the electronic transmission of
No, we have.
results on a national scale.
Yeah.
And of course, the beavers that everyone says is the antidote to vote buying, snatching of ballots, and it makes the elections more credible. How would you rate INEC's development in the last 4 years, and of course their preparation towards the 2023 elections?
I think the Electoral Act of 2002 does like the best thing it has ever done for Nigeria. I think it's a piece of legislation that was snuck even under the National Assembly because obviously they didn't read it. But anyway, that aside, BVAS actually ensures the electronic transmission of polling units to INEC servers. And this does so much of the work because the real rigging happens in collation centers. But there's also something in the Electoral Act 2022. Now, preceding the Electoral Act 2022, the natural thought was that INEC looked at things from the total number of voters in a polling unit. So if there are 5,000 voters in a polling unit, it didn't care the number of accredited voters. As long as it didn't exceed 5,000, that was INEC, it could be manipulated. But now, INEC pays attention to the accredited number of voters. You cannot exceed.
So the fact that there's 5,000 doesn't mean
you should bring 5,000 people from that polling unit.
So we're making steps forward and reaching our democratic experience.
If you look at the Osun elections, you find out that numbers were far lower than being projected. And this is not because people did not come out, it's because we had been excessively climbing numbers a long time ago. So when a polling unit has 5,000 people, you just present 5,000
So
votes.
we're having more realistic results.
Numbers, yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kunle Lawal, Executive Director, Electoral College, Nigeria. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Politics HQ. Thank you.